My parents said they wouldn't attend my wedding. Laura's birthday is more important. Your marriage is an embarrassment. My sister laughed. A plumber husband and a DIY ceremony. How tragic. I smiled and said, fine, but don't say I didn't warn you. On the wedding day, a crowd gathered. Cameras flashed. And my parents came running, panicked and out of breath. Mornings in Boston always begin quietly. Sarah Bennett gazed out the museum window, sighing deeply as she looked at the snow-covered common garden. Sarah, how is the display for the new arrivals coming along? Curator Martha called out to her. Sarah turned around with a gentle smile. It will be complete once I place the last 2 paintings. We'll be ready for this weekend's opening. She was in her 8th year as a museum curator. Her career at the Boston Museum of Contemporary Art brought her a quiet sense of fulfillment. The respect from her colleagues and the trust of visitors were based on her knowledge and insight. But when she returned home, all of that lost its meaning. Sarah's cell phone rang. It was a message from her mother. Family dinner tonight at 7. Laura has news about her promotion. Don't be late. She stared at the screen and sighed again. Her reply was brief. Understood. This was the typical exchange between her and her parents. That evening, Sarah stood in front of the Bennett family mansion. Her father, William, was a renowned businessman in real estate development. And her mother, Margaret, was a pillar of Boston's high society. For them, success meant social status and financial power. Sarah, you finally arrived. Margaret greeted her at the door. Her mother's eyes held that familiar hint of disappointment. That outfit, did you come straight from the museum? Sarah looked down at her simple pantsuit. I wasn't told it would be a fancy party. Well, family gatherings are just as important as parties, Margaret said lightly, embracing Sarah's shoulders. Laura is already here. Your sister is absolutely radiant. In the living room, Father William and Laura were laughing together. Laura was dressed in a Gucci dress with perfect makeup, standing next to her father. Since she had begun building her career at a Wall Street investment bank, her parents' attitudes had become even more obvious. Sarah was not the talented daughter. You're here. Laura turned with a dazzling smile. Listen, I've been promoted to associate director at WOULDN Investments. I'm the first person in their history to reach this position in their 20s. William smiled proudly. The star of our family. I'm truly proud of you, Laura. Sarah hugged her sister with a smile. Congratulations, Laura. That's wonderful. The dinner, as usual, was filled with stories of Laura's success and William's business prospects. Sarah's work at the museum was dismissed as merely a nice hobby. Sarah, don't you think it's time to consider a serious career? Margaret said while pouring wine. Art is wonderful, but there must be a place where your talents could be better utilized. Perhaps at your father's company. Mother, I'm satisfied with my work, Sarah answered calmly but firmly. And I have something to tell you. The table grew quiet. Sarah casually raised her left hand, showing a simple but beautiful engagement ring. James has proposed to me, and I've accepted. After a moment of silence, Laura stared intently at the ring. What? You're marrying that plumber? He's not a plumber. He's a plumbing technician, Sarah quietly corrected. James Carter is sincere, kind, and someone who really listens to me. William and Margaret exchanged glances. Their eyes clearly showed disappointment. You could surely find a better match. Margaret was the first to speak. Laura has many wonderful young investment bankers among her colleagues. Harvard and Yale graduates. James is the person I've chosen, Sarah said quietly as she continued eating. Her voice carried a rare, firm resolve. That night, Sarah remembered the day she met James a year ago. The museum's pipes had burst, and he came to fix them. The serious look in his eyes as he worked, and the intellectual curiosity he showed about the exhibits after the repairs. After sharing coffee, their relationship developed naturally. James listened to her and respected her passions. That was something she couldn't get from her family. Sarah returned to her apartment and called James. His warm voice penetrated deep into her heart. How did it go? James asked. As expected. Sarah laughed, looking up at the starry sky outside her window. But it's all right. We have our own life. For the first time in a long while, she felt the joy of being completely herself. On a Saturday afternoon, when spring sunlight brightly illuminated the streets of Boston, Sarah and James were making wedding plans in the living room of their small apartment. On the table were florist catalogs, a pamphlet from a small church, and a handwritten guest list. "How about the last weekend in May?" Sarah pointed to the calendar. "It'll be after the big exhibition at the museum, and the weather should be nice." James put his arm around her shoulder. "Sounds good. I want a small but heartfelt ceremony. What do your parents think?" Sarah hesitated for a moment. 2 weeks after announcing their engagement, there hadn't been a word of congratulations from her parents, not even a phone call. Still, she couldn't help but hold on to hope. "I'll go tell my parents the official date today," she resolved. That evening, Sarah visited her parents' home. Sipping coffee in the reception room, she carefully began to speak. "We've decided to have the wedding on May 28th. It's going to be a small ceremony, but I'd like the whole family to attend." William and Margaret looked at each other. Margaret spoke first. "May 28th, she frowned. "That's Laura's birthday. Such an important day." Sarah was surprised. She hadn't realized it was her sister's birthday. "Oh, that's right. I forgot. Well, we could change the date a bit." "Change?" William raised his voice. "You shouldn't change Laura's special day. She's planning a grand party for that day." "Is she?" Sarah was bewildered. "I didn't know. Then perhaps we should change our date. The weekend before, or number Sarah." Margaret interrupted with a harsh tone. "The problem isn't just the date. We simply cannot bless your marriage to that plumber." "James is not a plumber. He's a plumbing technician," Sarah quietly corrected. She took a deep breath and continued, "And he's a wonderful person. If you met him and talked with him, you'd understand. There's no need to meet him." William said coldly, "A Bennett daughter marrying such a working-class man. Think of our social standing." At that moment, Laura returned home. She entered the room cheerfully, carrying expensive shopping bags in both hands. "What are you all talking about?" she asked curiously. "Your sister plans to have her wedding on May 28th, Margaret explained. "Your birthday." Laura's expression darkened. "What? On my birthday? That's impossible. I've already planned a party at the Plaza Hotel. We've told her we can't attend," Margaret said. Moving closer to her daughter, Sarah quietly stood up. "I understand. If you can't come, there's nothing to be done about it." Laura looked down at her sister with contemptuous eyes. "And you're really going to marry that plumber? How can you imagine what kind of wedding it will be when he has no money? Probably some cheap DIY thing. Aren't you embarrassed?" Sarah felt a pang in her chest. However, she maintained a calm expression as she answered, "Our wedding will be true to who we are. James and I love each other for who we are as people, not for appearances or social status." "How touching," Laura said sarcastically. "But face reality. You're a museum employee, he's a plumber. A wedding between the two of you would be an embarrassment to the family." A moment of silence passed. Sarah took a deep breath and said quietly, "Fine, if you don't want to come. I respect that. But don't regret it later." There was a strange conviction in those words, but none of the family noticed it. After Sarah left, James hugged her. "Are you okay?" "Yes," she smiled. "We'll have a wonderful wedding, even if it's just us." James gently kissed her hair. "Don't worry. I need you. That's all that matters." Over the next few weeks, Sarah and James immersed themselves in wedding preparations. They booked a small historic church in the Boston suburbs and planned simple yet elegant decorations. The invitations were handmade, each one imbued with their feelings. Colleagues from the museum and James's friends sincerely congratulated them on their marriage and helped with the preparations. Meanwhile, Sarah's parents and sister seemed to have forgotten about her wedding as they busied themselves with preparations for Laura's birthday party. Occasionally, messages from her mother contained implications like, "There's still time to reconsider." 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah visited a small boutique for the final fitting of her dress. It was simple yet elegant, highlighting her beauty. "You look absolutely beautiful," the store owner exclaimed. "Your family must be so proud." Sarah smiled. "Yes, I'm sure they are." She gazed at her reflection in the mirror. On their wedding day, she and James would become a new family. They would build a family that respects and supports each other. With that thought, the sadness of her parents' and sister's absence began to gradually ease. On the last Saturday, in May, the small historic church in the Boston suburbs was bathed in gentle morning sunlight. Colorful spring flowers bloomed around the stone church. In a small preparation room, Sarah was making final adjustments to her wedding dress. with the help of her friend Jennifer. "You really are beautiful, Sarah," Jennifer exclaimed in admiration. "Simple but perfect for you." Sarah gazed at her reflection in the mirror. The ivory silk dress flowed smoothly along her body's lines, with delicate lace decorations adding elegance. "Thank you," she smiled. "I hope James likes it. He'll definitely be breathless." Jennifer placed her hand on her friend's shoulder. "But still, your parents not coming." Sarah quietly shook her head. "It's all right. Today is James's and my day." At that moment, a commotion could be heard from outside the church. Jennifer approached the window and peeked through a gap in the curtains. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed in surprise. "Sarah, look outside." Sarah rushed to the window. Luxury cars had begun arriving one after another on the street in front of the church. Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Ferraris, and even television broadcast vans were parked there. "What's happening?" Sarah asked with a confused expression. There was a knock at the door, and David, James's best friend, peeked in. He looked a bit nervous. "Sarah, I need to talk to you." "David, what's happening outside?" Sarah asked. "This is supposed to be our wedding, but it looks like a celebrity event." David took a deep breath and said, "James was planning to tell you everything, but it seems time ran out." He smiled slightly. "It's time to reveal James's true identity." "True identity?" Sarah's brows furrowed. "What do you mean? You'd better hear it from him," David said as he was about to leave the room. At that moment, noisy voices could be heard from outside. "Wait, please. We are the bride's family." Sarah froze at that voice. It was undoubtedly her mother's. "I'm sorry, but you cannot enter without an invitation," came the security guard's reply. "What? We are her parents?" This time, it was her father's angry voice that echoed. Sarah picked up the hem of her dress and hurried into the hallway. At the entrance to the church stood her parents and Laura, their faces drained of color. Her mother was dressed in expensive clothes. Her father wore a formal suit, and Laura was wearing a designer dress, clearly having rushed to get ready. "Mother, father, why are you here?" Sarah asked, trying to appear composed. The three of them turned to Sarah at once, their expressions mixed with surprise and confusion. "Sarah," Margaret rushed toward her. "What's going on? Why are the Carters here?" "The Carters?" Sarah asked, looking confused. "This morning's news," Laura said excitedly. It reported that business tycoon James Carter's wedding would be held today, and the photo of the venue was this church. "I got a message from my friend asking, 'Is it true your sister is marrying a Carter?'" Laura continued. "At first, I thought it was a joke, but it was trending on social media as the wedding of the Carter heir, James Carter," Sarah quietly repeated, "of Carter Construction." At that moment, David appeared again. Behind him was James, dressed in an elegant tuxedo. James looked into Sarah's eyes and smiled apologetically. "I'm sorry I didn't have time to tell you," James said quietly. Sarah approached James and said in a low voice, "James, what's going on? Are you part of the Carter family?" He took a deep breath and nodded, formally. "I'm James Carter, the heir to Carter Construction." The color drained from Sarah's face. Carter Construction was a global construction company, listed among the Fortune 500. "Why did you keep it secret?" she asked in a faint voice. "I never meant to deceive you." James looked at her with sincere eyes. "Before taking over the family business, I was training as a regular plumber to understand the field, and then I met you. You saw me for who I was, not for my status or wealth. That lie, that made me happy." Sarah was at a loss for words. During their year of dating, there had been mysteries, like how James occasionally gave expensive gifts or easily secured reservations at impossible-to-book restaurants. But she had considered these mere coincidences. "But why didn't you tell me when your family refused to accept our relationship because of my occupation?" "I thought about telling the truth," James explained quietly, "but it felt like I would be using my wealth and status to prove my worth, and I wanted to be accepted for other reasons." During this conversation, Sarah's parents and Laura had been staring at the couple with astonished expressions. "Sarah," William finally spoke up. "You didn't know?" Sarah looked at her father calmly. "No, I didn't. But that's not important. I love James as a person, whether he's a plumber or the heir to a major corporation." She turned back to her family and said with a dignified attitude, "You weren't invited today, were you?" Margaret was flustered. "But we're family." "Yes, Sarah answered gently. But you chose not to come to my wedding. You said my sister's birthday party was more important. Laura blushed. But if we had known, Sarah interrupted her. If you had known, you would have come. Then the real reason isn't our love, but James's social status. A moment of heavy silence fell. Sarah took James's arm and smiled quietly. I'm glad you came on our special day. Please come in. We'll arrange seats for you in the back rows. Inside the church, many notable figures were already seated: politicians, celebrities, and business moguls. Many of them were attending out of gratitude for the Carter family's charitable activities. Sarah's parents and sister were guided to seats in the back row, looking dazed. Their expressions showed regret and embarrassment. Laura, especially, was stunned to find that the wedding she had mocked as cheap had turned into the biggest celebrity event of the year. James squeezed Sarah's hand and whispered, "Ready?" She smiled back. "Yes, very much so." To the solemn tones of the pipe organ, Sarah began walking down the central aisle of the church. Leading her was Frank, the museum director, who had gladly agreed to give her away in place of her father. On both sides of the church stood James's family and friends, business associates, and political dignitaries. But Sarah's eyes didn't see them. Her gaze captured only James, standing at the altar. His eyes reflected warm affection and quiet emotion. At the back of the aisle, Sarah's parents and Laura stood with rigid expressions. Complex emotions crossed their eyes: surprise, regret, and shame. Laura, especially, was speechless to see that the wedding she had mocked as cheap had become the biggest event in Boston society. When Sarah reached the altar, James quietly took her hand. "You're beautiful," he whispered. As the priest began the ceremony, the church was enveloped in solemn silence. Sarah and James gazed at each other as they exchanged vows of love and loyalty. Their words of promise were simple, yet deeply moving. "I loved you as a plumber," Sarah said with a smile. "And now I love you just the same as the heir to the Carter family. I love all of you." Tears welled in James's eyes. "From the moment I met you, I knew true love. You saw me for who I was, not for my status or wealth. You taught me that's what matters most." When the ceremony ended, and the couple began walking down the aisle, applause of congratulations erupted from the attendees. Sarah and James smiled, showing their gratitude to each person. After leaving the church, the reception began at a lush estate in the Boston suburbs. James's parents, Jonathan and Elizabeth Carter, welcomed guests with expressions full of joy at receiving a new family member, Sarah. "I'm truly delighted to welcome you into our family." James's mother embraced her gently. She was a woman of refinement, yet with a warm personality. "When James first told us about you, I knew from the sparkle in his eyes that you were someone special. My son is a fortunate man," James's father added. He was a gentleman in his mid-60s with a gentle gaze that showed similarities to James. "We are truly happy that he found you." Meanwhile, Sarah's parents and Laura stood awkwardly in a corner of the reception hall. They clearly looked uncomfortable among the notable guests. "We should go see them," Sarah said to James. "After all, they are my family." James gently held her hand. "Let's go together." As they approached, Margaret looked at them with an expression close to tears. "Sarah, her voice broke. "Thank you for your congratulations," Sarah said quietly. William cleared his throat and began speaking with difficulty. "We misunderstood, James. About you. It's not a problem," James replied politely. "I should have been completely honest as well." Laura was looking at the floor, embarrassed. "Sis, I'm sorry for saying such terrible things. Today is a day of blessing," Sarah answered gently. "Let's forget the past." The highlight of the reception was the speech by the bride and groom. James stood up and took his glass. "Today, I feel the greatest happiness of my life," he began in a calm voice. "When I met Sarah, I was hiding who I was. That's because I wanted to find someone who would see the real me." He looked at Sarah. "And I was loved by Sarah as a mere plumber. That is my pride." His words were met with warm applause from the audience. Next, Sarah stood up. "When judging people, we are often misled by superficial things," she began quietly. "Occupation, status, wealth, but what truly matters is a person's essence. James taught me the importance of that." She looked around the room, momentarily sending a glance toward her family. "Love is truly understanding and accepting another person. Today, we have gathered to celebrate that love." Her words became a scathing irony toward her family. However, they also showed the possibility of reconciliation. Toward the end of the reception, Sarah was spending some time alone in the garden. Her parents approached her. "Sarah," her mother called out in a trembling voice, "we are truly sorry. We never understood you." Her father continued, his voice containing a humility rarely heard. "We didn't respect your values and imposed our own ideas. Please forgive us." Sarah looked at her parents. Their eyes showed genuine regret. "Today is not a day to seek forgiveness, but to celebrate," she answered quietly. "But the door to rebuild our relationship is always open." Margaret, with tears in her eyes, embraced her daughter. "Thank you, Sarah." As moonlight illuminated the garden, Laura joined them. She offered her sister a small gift box. "This was part of my birthday present, but today I want to give it to you." When Sarah opened the box, there was a beautiful antique brooch. "Grandmother gave it to me," Laura explained. "She told me to give it to someone truly precious. Someday, I realized that person is you." Sarah hugged her sister. "Thank you, Laura." At this moment, James joined them. He smiled gently and put his arm around Sarah's waist. "Family, I look forward to our future together," he said calmly. Stars shone in the night sky as new family bonds were quietly being formed. Sarah felt in her heart that today meant more than just a wedding. For her, it was a day that gave her the courage to accept her true self and to demand the same from others. James whispered in her ear, "Happy?" Sarah smiled. "Yes, very much." A year after their marriage, in spring, an opening ceremony was held in the special exhibition room of the Boston Museum of Art for an exhibition titled "Community and Creativity as a Bridge." Sarah Carter, arm in arm with James, was conversing with invited guests. Her face showed fulfillment and quiet pride. "This exhibition is wonderful, Sarah," Margaret Bennett said, standing close to her daughter. "It's truly meaningful to give young local artists an opportunity." Sarah smiled at her mother. "Thank you, Mum." Over this year, the relationship between Sarah and her family had gradually changed. It would still take time to build complete trust, but the first step had definitely been taken. Her parents now participated in monthly Sunday brunches and visited Sarah and James's new home more frequently. "Sarah," Laura ran over from across the exhibition room. She carried a bundle of documents in her arms. "The NGO representatives have agreed. They'll participate in the Carter Foundation's next project." Laura had quit her Wall Street job and now worked at the charitable foundation established by Sarah and James. Her sharp business sense and energy had become a driving force in promoting the foundation's activities. "That's wonderful news." Sarah hugged her sister. Her relationship with her sister had also changed dramatically. The former competitiveness and jealousy had disappeared, and they were now sisters who recognized each other's talents and cooperated. Laura had come to be ashamed of her actions and moved away from career-first thinking, understanding the importance of human relationships. "That's wonderful." Sarah, Elizabeth Carter, James's mother, approached. "Your collaboration is bearing fruit." James's parents had taught Sarah what true parental love was. They were always supportive of the young couple while respecting their independence. "Any news about grandchildren yet?" Elizabeth Carter gently inquired. Sarah and James looked at each other and smiled. "Actually," James said in a lowered voice, "we have good news." That same evening, at a dinner at home, Sarah stood up with a wine glass in hand. Gathered around the table were James's parents, her own parents, and Laura. "I have an announcement for everyone," she said in a soft voice. "We are going to have an addition to our family." Joyful voices and applause resonated through the room. Jonathan, James's father, embraced his son's shoulders with visible emotion. "Congratulations, son." Sarah felt that this was the true image of family, not just blood ties, but relationships of mutual respect and support. She was now surrounded by two families and about to start her own new family. That night, looking up at the starry sky with James on the terrace, Sarah quietly said, "It's strange, isn't it? If my parents had come to the wedding, would things have changed like this?" James embraced her. "Sometimes, people only realize what's precious after they've lost it." Sarah nodded. In her heart was not regret for the past, but hope for the future. The family she and James would build would learn from past mistakes and be founded on love and respect. "I want to teach our child the importance of being oneself," Sarah said quietly. and that true value lies not in titles or status, but in the person themselves. James added, in the gentle embrace of moonlight, Sarah felt truly happy. Life has unexpected turns. In her case, it wasn't just the surprise that the man she thought was a plumber turned out to be a wealthy heir, but also a journey to re-examine her relationship with her family and learn about true love and respect. I love you, Sarah, James whispered. I love you too, she answered. Now and always.